There's a question that haunts every quiet moment, every restless night, every time you catch your reflection and wonder who's really looking back. Are you living as yourself or as someone you think you should be? Right now, millions of people are walking through life wearing masks so convincing they've forgotten their own face underneath. They've become strangers to themselves, living scripts written by others, chasing dreams that aren't their own. But what if I told you that the most profound journey you'll ever take isn't to some distant place, but inward, to the vast, unexplored territory of your own soul? If you've ever felt like you're living someone else's life, if you've ever wondered who you really are beneath all the roles and expectations, then this video is for you. Hit subscribe, because we're about to embark on the most important journey of your life. Self-discovery isn't a luxury for the privileged or a hobby for the spiritually inclined. It's the fundamental task of being human. Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of integrating all aspects of yourself into a coherent whole. The Stoics spoke of knowing thyself as the foundation of wisdom. Buddhist teachings remind us that until we understand our true nature, we remain trapped in cycles of suffering and illusion. Yet in our hyper-connected, constantly demanding world, we've become experts at avoiding ourselves. We scroll through others' lives instead of examining our own. We chase external validation instead of cultivating internal worth. We mistake busyness for purpose and distraction for peace. Today, we're going to change that. We're going to explore 5 transformative stages of self-discovery that can guide you home to yourself. This isn't about finding yourself in some mystical sense. This is about the practical, profound work of understanding who you are, what you value, and how to live in alignment with your deepest truth. Because until you know yourself, you're living someone else's life, and that's the greatest tragedy of all. Chapter 1. The Mirror of Truth. Confronting your authentic self. The first step in self-discovery is perhaps the most terrifying. Looking at yourself without the filters, without the stories, without the comfortable lies we tell ourselves to sleep at night. Socrates declared that the unexamined life is not worth living, but examination requires courage. It requires us to step into what Jung called the encounter with the unconscious, the hidden parts of ourselves we'd rather not acknowledge. Most of us live our entire lives performing. We perform the role of the good employee, the perfect parent, the successful person, the happy individual. We become so skilled at these performances that we forget they're just that, performances. Beneath the masks lies something raw, authentic, and often uncomfortable, our true self. The mirror of truth reflects not just our strengths, but our shadows. It shows us our fears masquerading as preferences, our wounds disguised as personality traits, our unlived potential buried under layers of conditioning. When you look in this mirror, you might see the ambitious person who's actually driven by deep insecurity, or the people-pleaser who's terrified of rejection, or the perfectionist who's afraid of being seen as flawed. But here's what's remarkable. The moment you stop running from these truths, they lose their power over you. The shadow, as Jung taught us, isn't evil, it's simply unconscious. When you bring awareness to your patterns, your fears, your authentic desires, you reclaim your power to choose consciously, rather than react unconsciously. Start with this simple but profound practice. Spend 10 minutes each morning writing about how you really feel, not how you think you should feel. Write about what you actually want, not what you think you should want. Write about your fears, your dreams, your contradictions. Don't edit, don't judge, just observe. This is your first glimpse in the mirror of truth. The authentic self isn't perfect, it's whole. It contains multitudes, contradictions, complexity. It's the part of you that exists before anyone else's opinion, before society's expectations, before your own harsh inner critic. When you begin to recognize this authentic self, you'll notice something shifting. The exhaustion of constant performance begins to lift. The anxiety of living someone else's life starts to dissolve. You begin to breathe more deeply because you're finally coming home to yourself. Chapter 2. The Archaeology of the Soul. Excavating your core values. Your values aren't just nice ideas you post on social media or noble concepts you admire from afar. They're the bedrock of your identity, the GPS of your soul, the invisible force that either aligns your life with meaning or leaves you perpetually lost. Yet most people couldn't name their top 5 values if their happiness depended on it. And perhaps that's why so many feel empty despite external success. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about events. But what forms these judgments? Your values. They're the lens through which you see reality, the criteria by which you make decisions, the foundation upon which you build your life. When your actions align with your values, you experience what psychologists call authentic happiness. When they don't, you feel the persistent ache of living out of integrity. But here's the challenge. Many of the values we think are ours are actually hand-me-downs from family, culture, or society. We inherit them unconsciously and never question whether they truly fit who we're becoming. You might be chasing wealth because your family values financial security, but your soul craves creative expression. You might be pursuing status because society celebrates achievement, but your heart yearns for connection and service. The archaeology of the soul requires you to dig deeper, to separate what you've been conditioned to value from what genuinely matters to you. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most alive, most authentic, most in flow. What values were you honoring in those moments? Was it creativity, adventure, compassion, truth, freedom, connection? These peak experiences are clues to your authentic values. Consider also your deepest frustrations and angers. Often, we feel most upset when our core values are being violated. If injustice makes your blood boil, fairness might be a core value. If superficial relationships drain you, authenticity might be what you crave. If routine suffocates you, freedom and growth might be essential to your well-being. Buddhist teachings remind us that attachment to outcomes causes suffering, but this doesn't mean we should abandon all preferences or desires. Rather, it means understanding what truly matters to you versus what you think should matter. When you know your authentic values, decision-making becomes clearer. You stop saying yes to things that drain your soul and start saying yes to what nourishes it. Create a values hierarchy for yourself. List what matters most to you in order of importance. Then look at how you actually spend your time, energy, and attention. Are they aligned? If not, you've just identified why you might feel unfulfilled despite being busy. Self-discovery isn't just about knowing who you are, it's about having the courage to live as who you are. Chapter 3. The Prison of Yesterday. Liberating yourself from limiting beliefs. We are all walking libraries of stories about ourselves, and most of these stories were written when we were too young to question their truth. A harsh word from a teacher becomes, "I'm not smart enough." A childhood rejection becomes, "I'm not lovable." An early failure becomes, "I'm not capable." These limiting beliefs don't just influence our thoughts, they shape our entire reality, creating invisible prisons that keep us small long after we've grown powerful enough to break free. Carl Jung observed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Nowhere is this more true than with our limiting beliefs. They operate below the radar of conscious thought, quietly sabotaging our dreams and keeping us trapped in patterns that no longer serve us. The successful businesswoman who secretly believes she's a fraud. The talented artist who's convinced no one will appreciate their work. The loving person who thinks they're unworthy of deep connection. These beliefs feel true because they've been reinforced over years or decades, but feeling true and being true are entirely different things. Your limiting beliefs are not facts about you. They're outdated software running in the background of your mind, and like any software, they can be updated. The first step in liberation is recognition. What stories do you tell yourself about what you can't do, can't have, or can't become? Listen to your inner dialogue, especially when you're considering taking a risk or pursuing something meaningful. Notice the buts that arise. I'd love to start my own business, but I'm not entrepreneurial enough. I'd love to write a book, but I'm not a real writer. I'd love to find deep love, but I'm too damaged. These buts are the voice of your limiting beliefs, and they're afraid of one thing, your expansion. They'd rather keep you safe and small than see you risk failure in pursuit of your dreams. But here's what they don't tell you. The greatest risk isn't failure. It's never trying at all. Buddhist philosophy teaches us about the concept of beginner's mind, approaching life with openness and curiosity rather than fixed ideas about what's possible. What if you approached your own potential with beginner's mind? What if instead of "I can't," you asked, "What if I could?" What if instead of "I'm not the type of person who," you wondered, "What type of person am I becoming?" The Stoics practiced a technique called reframing, looking at situations from different perspectives to find empowering interpretations. Your past failures aren't evidence of your limitations. They're data about what doesn't work and stepping stones to what does. Your rejections aren't proof of your unworthiness. They're redirections toward better fits. Your struggles aren't signs of your weakness. They're the sculpting tools that are carving you into your strongest self. Start challenging your limiting beliefs with evidence to the contrary. For every "I can't," find an example of when you did. For every "I'm not," find a moment when you were. Begin to see yourself as someone who's constantly evolving rather than someone with fixed limitations. Because the truth is, you're not the same person who first acquired those limiting beliefs, and you have the power to write new, more empowering stories about who you're becoming. Chapter 4. The Garden of Gifts. Discovering your unique strengths and passions. Within you lies a constellation of gifts as unique as your fingerprint, a combination of talents, interests, and natural inclinations that no one else in history has possessed in quite the same way. Yet most people go to their graves with their greatest gifts still wrapped, their deepest passions unexplored, their unique contribution to the world unmade. This isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a loss for all of us, because the world needs what only you can offer. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote about becoming who you are, but this isn't about creating yourself from nothing, it's about discovering and cultivating what's already there. Like a master gardener who works with the natural tendencies of the soil and climate, self-discovery involves recognizing your innate strengths and creating conditions where they can flourish. Your strengths aren't just the things you're good at. They're the activities that energize you while you're doing them. There's a difference between competence and calling, between skill and passion. You might be competent at many things that drain you, but your true strengths are the ones that make you feel more alive, not more tired. When you're operating in your strengths, time seems to bend. Hours pass like minutes. You enter what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called flow state, where self-consciousness disappears and you become one with the activity. Pay attention to what you loved doing as a child before the world told you what was practical or profitable. The child who spent hours drawing might have artistic gifts waiting to be reclaimed. The one who organized elaborate games might have leadership abilities. The one who comforted hurt animals might have a calling to heal. These early inclinations aren't childish phases to outgrow. They're clues to your authentic nature. But discovering your gifts isn't just about looking backward, it's about experimenting forward. Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron reminds us that we are all capable of awakening, but awakening requires us to step into the unknown. Try new things, not because you know you'll be good at them, but because curiosity calls to you. Take that photography class, learn that instrument, volunteer for that cause. Your gifts might be hiding in territories you've never explored. Notice also what problems naturally capture your attention. The issues that make you say, someone should do something about this, might be exactly what you're meant to address. Your frustrations with the world often point to your mission in the world. The teacher who's frustrated with outdated education methods might be called to innovate new ones. The employee who's frustrated with workplace toxicity might be meant to create healthier organizational cultures. Your passions aren't frivolous, they're fuel. They're what make the hard work of mastery feel like play. They're what give you the resilience to persist when others give up. They're what make your eventual contribution authentic and sustainable rather than forced and temporary. The world doesn't need another carbon copy of someone else's success. It needs your original contribution, born from the unique intersection of your gifts, experiences, and perspective. When you discover and develop your authentic strengths, you're not just fulfilling your potential. You're offering the world something it cannot get anywhere else. And that's not just personally satisfying, it's sacred. Chapter 5. The Art of Authentic Living. Integrating your true self. Knowing yourself is only the beginning. The real art lies in having the courage to live as yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you someone else. This is what Jung called individuation. Not just discovering who you are, but becoming who you are, fully and unapologetically. It's the difference between self-awareness and self-actualization, between knowing your truth and living your truth. Authentic living isn't about being selfish or disregarding others. It's about being so grounded in your own truth that you can show up genuinely in all your relationships and endeavors. When you're not constantly performing or hiding, or trying to be someone you're not, you have more energy available for what actually matters. You become more present, more compassionate, more creative, because you're not wasting energy on internal conflict. But let's be honest, authentic living is challenging. Society rewards conformity more than authenticity. Families often prefer predictability over growth. Workplaces value compliance over creativity. There will be people who liked you better when you were playing small, who are threatened by your growth, who try to pull you back into old patterns. This is what spiritual teachers call growth resistance, the forces that arise to test your commitment to your evolution. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius faced this challenge of living authentically while meeting external demands. His meditations reveal someone constantly working to align his actions with his values, to remain true to his principles while navigating the complexities of leadership and relationships. He reminds us that we cannot control others' reactions to our authenticity, but we can control our commitment to it. Authentic living requires what I call sacred boundaries. The ability to say no to what doesn't align with your values and yes to what does, even when it's uncomfortable. It means choosing relationships that celebrate your growth rather than sabotage it. It means pursuing work that engages your gifts rather than just pays your bills. It means making decisions based on your inner compass rather than external expectations. This doesn't happen overnight. Authentic living is a practice, not a destination. Some days you'll catch yourself slipping back into old patterns, and that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's consciousness. Each time you choose authenticity over approval, truth over comfort, growth over safety, you strengthen the muscle of being yourself. Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield speaks of the wise heart, the part of you that knows what's right for your unique path. When you're living authentically, you feel this wise heart guiding you. Decisions become clearer because they're filtered through your values. Relationships become more meaningful because they're based on truth rather than pretense. Work becomes more fulfilling because it expresses who you are rather than just what you do. The paradox of authentic living is that when you stop trying to be everything to everyone, you become more valuable to the right people. When you stop chasing others' approval, you gain your own respect. When you stop living someone else's life, you finally start living your own. And that's when the real magic happens, not just for you, but for everyone whose life you touch with your authentic presence. The journey of self-discovery never truly ends. You are not a problem to be solved once and for all, but a mystery to be lived more and more deeply. Each stage of life will ask you to discover new aspects of yourself, to shed old skins, to grow into larger versions of who you're becoming. This isn't a burden, it's the adventure of being human. What we've explored today, the mirror of truth, the archaeology of values, the liberation from limiting beliefs, the discovery of your gifts, and the art of authentic living. These aren't just concepts to understand, but practices to embody. They're not destinations to reach, but paths to walk. The goal isn't to arrive at some final, perfected version of yourself, but to live with increasing awareness, authenticity, and alignment. Remember this, you already contain everything you need for this journey. The answers aren't in some distant place or person. They're in the depths of your own being, waiting to be discovered. The courage you need isn't something you lack. It's something you cultivate with each small act of honesty, each choice to honor your truth, each step toward becoming who you really are. Your authentic self isn't waiting to be created. It's waiting to be uncovered. Like Michelangelo's David, already perfect within the marble, needing only the excess to be carved away. Your task isn't to become someone new, but to remove everything that isn't essentially you. The world needs your authentic contribution. It needs your unique perspective, your particular gifts, your original way of being human. When you have the courage to be yourself, you give others permission to do the same. Your authenticity becomes a light that illuminates the path for others who are still finding their way home to themselves. If this resonated with something deep within you, if you felt the stirring of recognition or the call to begin this sacred work, then you're ready. Leave a comment below and share what part of this journey speaks to you most. Subscribe to continue exploring the depths of human consciousness and potential. And remember, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. Make it a loving one.